Ilara Voss had learned, early in life, how to make herself small. In the Ashwood pack, being small meant being safe. She was the daughter of an Omega mother who had died of a fever when Ilara was 7, and a father she had never known, a wanderer who had passed through the territory once and never returned. That made her an outsider twice over, even though she had been born within Ashwood's borders and had never lived anywhere else. She worked as an assistant to old Marta, the pack healer, grinding herbs, boiling water, and wrapping wounds that other wolves earned in training or in border disputes. It was steady work, if not respected work, and it let Ilara stay out of sight of the pack's ranking wolves, the ones who liked to remind lower-ranked members exactly where they stood. She was 19 when the elders found the mark. It happened during a health inspection, something old Marta performed twice a year on every pack member, checking for injuries, illness, or the early signs of a first shift going wrong. When Marta lifted the edge of Ilara's tunic to check an old scrape on her shoulder, she went very still. There, just below Ilara's collarbone, was a mark Ilara had never noticed before. It was pale gold, shaped like a crescent moon wrapped in a circle of small stars, and it seemed to shimmer faintly under candlelight, as though something beneath the skin were breathing. "What is that?" Ilara asked, twisting to see it in the small mirror on the wall. Marta did not answer. She called for the Alpha. Within the hour, Ilara was standing in the center of the pack hall, surrounded by the Ashwood elders, her tunic pulled aside so they could all stare at the mark on her shoulder. She had never felt so exposed in her life. The elders spoke in low, urgent voices, words like royal bond and dream mark, and this cannot stay passing between them like poison. "It's a king's mark," one elder finally said, loud enough for Ilara to hear. "A dream bond mark. Only alpha kings carry the power to place one, even from a distance, even before the mate is ever met. If word of this reaches the wrong ears, every rival pack in the region will descend on Ashwood, hoping to use her as a bargaining chip. Or worse, the king himself will come looking, and he will not care what happens to this pack when he takes what belongs to him." Ilara did not understand most of what they were saying. She understood only the fear in their eyes, and the decision it led them to. They told her it was for her own protection. They told her the pack could not survive the attention a mark like that would bring, that kings did not ask permission, they took, and that a war fought over an Omega's daughter would cost lives that mattered more than hers. She was held down on a wooden table by 2 enforcers, while old Marta, weeping the entire time, pressed heated silver against the mark until the golden light died and only an angry, twisted scar remained. Ilara did not scream. She had learned long ago that screaming changed nothing. She simply stared at the ceiling and let the pain wash over her until it, too, became something she could survive. After that night, she covered her shoulder with high collars and heavy scarves, even in summer heat. She did not speak of the mark again, and neither did anyone else in Ashwood. It became something the pack had decided together to forget, the way people forget things that make them ashamed. 3 years passed. Ilara turned 22. She kept working beside old Marta, kept her head down, kept expecting nothing from her life beyond quiet, small days in a pack that had never wanted her, and never would. She told herself she was at peace with that. Most nights, she almost believed it. What Ilara did not know was that 300 miles to the north, in the stone halls of the Blackridge throne, a king had spent 10 years searching for her. King Cassius Thornheart had felt the bond form when he was 20 years old, in the strange half-sleep between waking and dreaming that sometimes came to wolves of royal blood. He had seen her, just for a moment, a girl with dark hair and quick, careful hands, standing in candlelight with her back to him. He had felt the bond snap into place inside his chest, like a key turning in a lock that had waited his whole life to be opened. And then, just as suddenly, the connection had been severed. Not faded, not weakened. Severed, the way a rope is cut clean through. For 10 years, Cassius had ruled his kingdom with a wolf inside him that never fully settled. He was a strong king, a fair one, respected by his people and feared by his enemies. But those closest to him knew something in him had been broken since that night. He did not take a queen. He did not entertain the endless offers of alliance marriages from neighboring packs. He searched instead, quietly, patiently, sending trusted scouts into every territory his kingdom touched, looking for any sign of a broken bond mark, any whisper of a girl whose mate mark had been forcibly removed. Most kings would have given up long before 10 years passed. Cassius was not most kings. His wolf refused to let him rest, and so he did not rest either. The rumor reached him almost by accident. A trader passing through Blackridge territory mentioned, in passing, a strange incident from years back in a small pack called Ashwood, something about the elders burning a mark off a young Omega girl to avoid trouble with outside packs. The trader did not think much of the story. Cassius nearly rose out of his chair. He rode for Ashwood territory himself, without guards, without banners, wearing the plain clothes of a traveling merchant. If this lead turned out to be nothing, as so many had before it, he did not want word spreading that the king had chased another false hope across the countryside. His advisors had grown quietly worried about how many times his hope had been raised and crushed. He preferred to hunt this one down alone. He arrived in Ashwood on a gray afternoon, claiming to be a trader interested in the pack's dealings, and was directed, as most newcomers were, to the healer's cottage to have a minor travel injury looked at. It was the easiest way to move freely through a pack without drawing suspicion. Healers saw everyone. Alara was alone in the cottage when he walked through the door. Old Marta had gone to gather herbs from the far side of the woods and would not return until evening. The moment Cassius crossed the threshold, his wolf went utterly silent inside him, the way a storm goes silent in the eye of it. He stopped walking. He stopped breathing. The scent in the small room hit him like a physical blow, faint and strange beneath layers of herbs and smoke, but unmistakable underneath it all. It was her. After 10 years, it was her. Alara looked up from the table where she was mixing a poultice and found a tall stranger staring at her, as though she were the only thing in the world worth looking at. "Can I help you?" she asked, a little unsettled by his stillness. "Your shoulder," he said, before he could stop himself. His voice came out rough, strained. "May I see your shoulder?" Alara's hand rose instinctively to her collar. No one asked about the scar. No one in Ashwood had spoken of it in years, and no stranger had ever noticed it beneath her high collars before. "I don't know what you mean," she said carefully, stepping back. "Please," Cassius said, and something in his voice, some deep and desperate honesty, made her pause instead of calling for help. "I am not here to hurt you. I think I have been looking for you for a very long time," he told her, haltingly at first, then in a rush, about the dream bond that had formed a decade ago, about the sudden severing of it, about 10 years of searching every territory he could reach. He did not tell her yet that he was a king. He only told her about the ache that had lived in his chest since he was 20 years old, and how it had gone quiet the moment he walked through her door. Alara did not believe him, not at first. She had spent 3 years convincing herself the mark meant nothing, that whatever it had connected her to was gone forever, burned away along with the golden light on her skin. But something in this stranger's eyes made her lower her collar with trembling hands and show him the scar anyway. Cassius made a sound she would remember for the rest of her life, low and broken, half grief and half relief. He did not touch her, though every instinct in his body screamed at him to. He simply stood there, looking at the ruined mark on her shoulder, and let his own eyes fill with something she had never seen a stranger show her before: sorrow, on her behalf. "They did this to protect the pack," Alara said quietly, though even as she said it, the old justification felt thinner than it once had. "They said, if word got out, a king would come and take what he wanted, and people would die for it. They were afraid of the wrong thing," Cassius said. "They should have feared what it would cost you, not what it might cost them." He told her the truth then, not a merchant, not a trader. Cassius Thornheart, king of the Blackridge throne, standing in a healer's cottage in a small pack that had spent 3 years pretending a king would never come. Alara did not scream, did not faint, did not fall to her knees the way old stories claimed people did in front of kings. She simply stared at him, turning the impossible truth over in her mind, and felt something in her chest that she had buried so deep for so long that she barely recognized it. Hope, thin and frightened, but alive. Word spread through Ashwood by nightfall, the way word always did in packs. By the time the moon rose, black and heavy above the trees, The entire pack had gathered in the central hall, summoned by the Alpha himself, once he learned who had walked among them under a false name. Cassius stood before them without armor, without guards, dressed still in the plain clothes he had arrived in. He did not need armor. His presence alone was enough to make even the Ashwood Alpha's shoulders bow slightly under the weight of it. He did something no king in Ashwood's history had ever done. He knelt, in front of the entire gathered pack, before Elara, who stood frozen near the healer's cottage doorway, still not entirely certain this was not some strange, cruel dream. "You are my fated mate," he said, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. "Marked before I ever met you, by a bond older and stronger than fear, older than any pack's politics. This pack took a knife to something that was never theirs to touch." The Ashwood Alpha tried to explain, tried to speak of protection and survival, and the impossible choices small packs faced when threatened by powers greater than themselves. Cassius listened, his jaw tight, his eyes never leaving Elara's face. "I understand fear," he said finally, when the Alpha finished. "I do not forgive what you did with it. A mark like this is not simply decoration. It is a bond between two souls, forged by something neither of us controls. You did not just scar her skin, you tried to sever something that connects two lives together. That is not protection. That is cruelty, wearing protection's clothes." He did not destroy Ashwood, though every wolf in that hall braced for exactly that. Instead, he stripped the pack of its independent status, placing it under Blackridge's watch and protection, ensuring that no elder would ever again have the power to make a decision like that alone, hidden from outside eyes. It was not mercy exactly. It was accountability, wrapped in a king's version of restraint. Then he turned back to Elara, and in front of the entire pack that had once held her down on a table and burned away the truest thing about her, he named her his queen. Elara felt the weight of every eye in that hall, the same way she had felt it 3 years before, except this time, the fear crawling up her spine was different. It was not the fear of being seen, it was the fear of finally being allowed to want something for herself. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," Cassius said quietly. "Only for her. I searched 10 years for you. I can wait a little longer, if that is what you need." But Elara found, standing there beneath the black moon, that she did not want to wait. She had spent 3 years small, hidden, and quiet, believing that was the safest way to live. She was tired of safe. She wanted, for the first time in a very long time, to be seen. She crossed the hall and stood beside him, and when he pressed his lips gently to the scarred skin of her shoulder, something extraordinary happened. Beneath the ruined tissue, a faint golden light began to stir, pushing weakly against the damage that had been done to it, as though the bond itself refused to accept that it had ever truly been broken. It would take time to heal fully, old Marta would say later, examining it with tears in her eyes. But it was healing. It had never actually stopped trying. By the time the sun rose over Ashwood the next morning, Elara left the only pack she had ever known, riding beside a king who had crossed a kingdom and 10 long years to find her. She did not look back at the pack hall, or the healer's cottage, or the elders who watched her go, with expressions she no longer had the energy to interpret. She had spent her whole life being told her mark was something dangerous, something to fear, something that had to be destroyed to keep her safe. She learned that night that she had been wrong about all of it. The mark had never been a curse. It had been a promise, made long before she ever understood what it meant, and no fire, no fear, and no small pack's cowardice had ever been strong enough to burn it away for good.